Welcome to Your Career Story podcast, a show that's designed for rock star professionals looking for that extra booster shot of confidence in their careers. Whether you're trying to get clarity on a job transition, want some work-life balance inspiration, or need a strategy to snag that promotion or raise, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jenna Viviano, ex-Wall Streeter turned startup junkie who now coaches hundreds of clients, empowering them to take back control of the job search and land their dream job. So sit back, grab a glass of wine, and prepare yourself for your weekly boost of career confidence. Welcome to another episode of the Your Career Story podcast. I am here with my good friend, Kristin, and she is going to be chatting with us today all about her position as the current executive director of Tennessee Kids Belong and just life in nonprofit life and just her career trajectory. So Kristin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about executive director? What does that title mean in the nonprofit world, or maybe just specifically for Tennessee Kids Belong?
Currently, as executive director for Tennessee Kids Belong, I wear a lot of hats.
As most people do, I feel like when you get to that kind of level.
Right? It's 24/7. It's constantly dreaming, casting vision, managing employees, living in that creative space of what's next, where are we going, how do we get there?
Yeah, it's almost like you're operating a startup in a nonprofit format, right?
Absolutely. I feel like an entrepreneur. I feel like a people manager, social worker, all of it.
So did you start this from the ground up? So tell us what Tennessee Kids Belongs is in the first place, and then tell us how you actually got to the point where you're like, I'm going to start this thing.
Absolutely. So Tennessee Kids Belong is a organization, we're a nonprofit that unites leaders in different social sectors. So we work with the business community, the creative community, faith community, and the government to come around the foster care system and use whatever skills, vocation, place in society to help kids in foster care and the families who are taking them in.
That's good. It's funny. I remember the first time I didn't know anything about foster care, really, until honestly this summer. And I think I've told you this story where I was chatting with a friend of mine and she told me about this girl that she knew that was a single foster mom. I went, that's not real. That's not a real thing. There's no way that's real. And then a couple months later, you and I were in a group together. What would you call it? It was like a mastermind, spiritual mastermind, Bible study. I don't even know. Leadership development, something or another. And I remember you explaining what you did. And I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to meet her and be friends with her. And so I just love what you guys do. I think it's super important. And I've had this like almost newfound passion in the past year for this initiative. But you weren't always doing this, or were you always doing this type of work?
No. So I went to school to be a social worker.
What does that mean? People say social worker. What does that mean?
Actually, it's funny because I had never heard the term social worker until my first week in college.
Where'd you go to school?
Azusa Pacific University.
Okay. So is that out west, right?
California.
Okay.
Yeah,
California.
Christian school in California. So I was adopted growing up, super positive experience, but never heard the term social worker before.
Really?
I talked very openly about my adoption with anybody. So my first week in college, I mentioned it to someone and they said, are you going to be a social work major? And I had no idea what that was. So I went back to my dorm, looked it up in the catalog, and marched into the registrar's office and said, okay, I'm here to change my major. And they were like, why don't you give college more than a week before you change your major?
You're like, I know what I want. I'm going to get after it.
I said, I have never been more sure of anything. I want to be a social worker and I want to help families adopt. That was my heart and my passion. I've had such a good experience.
How old were you when you were adopted?
I was a baby, infant adoption.
Okay.
So I was never actually in foster care.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I remember journaling, this is the best thing. I can't imagine doing anything else with my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to do adoptions, private adoptions for families.
Yeah.
So I had my head in that. And my senior year of college, I got an internship doing investigations, child abuse investigations.
So it's kind of like Law & Order SVU, but for
for real. Like,
do you know I watched that show I binge watch that show. It's really bad. I might do that tonight. It's a Friday night, y'all, and I might be going to binge watch Law & Order SVU.
Just call me Mariska Hargitay.
Yeah. Okay, I will.
So I started doing investigations and thought, well, this is not what I was thinking. This is not the trajectory. Like I'm doing private adoptions. But I fell in love with it. And so I worked for Los Angeles County. I was this, young blonde, just graduated high school or college, knocking on people's doors. I'm here to investigate you for child abuse.
But like, how did you get hired for that? And two, just like, what was a day in the life like? Like, every day had to have been different.
It was crazy. So when I first started, I was doing the investigations by myself. So it was anytime a referral came into the hotline, and it would get to send it out to people, and I would go literally drive, knock on the door, and hope that I was received somewhat pleasantly. I had to call for police backup sometimes.
Were you scared?
I did have a gun pulled on me once.
That must have been petrifying.
I learned that my tell is my right leg shakes. When I'm really nervous, my right leg would shake, and I would hope that they weren't looking at me. And I'm sitting there, a young social worker with my clipboard, taking notes. And about a year in, I heard that there was an opening for this job, much higher profile, drug raids, worked at a law enforcement station. And I said, that is so cool. I want to do that. So I said,
that would be nothing I would ever say. That just shows like our giftings. And I think that's kind of impressive, honestly, because some people look at something like that, like you are, and you're like, that's amazing. I want to be a part of that. Jenna Marie Viviana will say, absolutely not. I'll run for the hills. I'm just going to watch it on TV. Like, no way are those two things combined.
So I have a little bit of an impulsive streak. So I sent an email to the supervisor who manages that specialized unit in Los Angeles.
What did you say in the email?
Just that I would like to be considered for this job.
Boldness, I love it.
I think I still had trainee in my title, because you're a trainee for the first year when you're working for the county. So I went out to go do some home visits, came back, and I had a message saying that they wanted to meet with me, and the very next day.
And how much experience had you had, and how much was required?
22.
You were 22?
I was 22.
And how much experience did you need for that job?
Probably about 5 more years. I
love that, though. And you saw that probably on the job description.
Sort of. And I just kind of bypassed it when I sent the email. And then I realized, oh, shoot, I'm actually not qualified for this. So when I called back, I said, hey, yes, I would love to meet with him tomorrow. However, this is my current job status title. And she said, let me go check. So then they come back and tell me, okay, he still wants to meet with you. But you have to be very covert, and it's in this secret building. And it's unmarked, and be really discreet. And there's a phone. Pick up the phone. Ask for Emilio.
I feel like I'd be like, this is a lie. This is a farce. This is not real.
And then she said, write down the address on a piece of paper and you can destroy. I'm like, this is so freaking cool.
Again, you versus me. I'd be like, no, thank you.
So I went and I showed up, and there were these 2 guys, and I thought they were homeless guys out front. And so I'm trying to be really discreet in my suit and pick up the phone, the secret phone. Anyway, go in, get the interview, and it went wonderful. And next thing I know, I'm being fitted for a bulletproof vest.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm standing there thinking, I'm just a social worker. Like, how am I getting fitted? Those guys that were homeless guys were actually undercover cops, and they were making so much fun of me for how lame I was at trying to be discreet and pick up the secret phone.
That wasn't part of your interview?
They're like, why don't you come look at the 2 tons of cocaine we just seized? I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
So it was, far and beyond anything I had ever imagined graduating as a social work major, and not what I was picturing. And
what it was going to look like. You're like, happy babies, I'm going to place babies in great homes, and now you're wearing a bulletproof vest. So what was your actual title there?
Forensic child abuse investigator.
Okay, so how long were you there, and what was the craziest story you have that you're allowed to share, probably?
Be allowed to share. So I would go in with the SWAT team, and they would flashbang houses, and I'd run in and get the kids. I mean, it very much felt like I was living Law and Order. It was really cool.
I did not know this about you. I knew the bulletproof vest, but the rest of it.
You didn't know what I did with the bulletproof vest?
No, it's just new bulletproof vest was a part of your identity,
So I worked the best part of that was I was put on a federal task force. I was the first social worker in LA to do that, and really honored, and was helping train both FBI and Homeland Security on interviewing kids. And so we would watch child videos and things that were filmed, and I would be interviewing them and taking them to the hospital for exams, and then testifying in federal court against these perpetrators, which was...
How did you... Crazy. So for me, we've talked about, I get really emotional very easily. It's like at the drop of a hat, I can start crying. So how are you able to compartmentalize? I feel like that would be so hard to be able to compartmentalize that.
Yeah.
Seeing this and seeing the kids, and you're getting to know them, and then they're going through all this trauma, and you're like, I don't know how I can actually help you.
Yeah. So empathy, I'm huge empath, could cry at a side commercial. You tell me a story and I'm feeling it. I'm in there with you. But it was quickly realizing that I can't help them if I sit in that place with them. So I can feel, I can be there, I can be a trusted source. I quickly gain rapport with them. But unless I move my empathy to action, nobody's going to get helped, right? Those kids are not going to be taken to a safer place. Yeah. So it was really a learning curve of separating yourself emotionally and doing what you need to do to help the kid.
Yeah. And how old were these children, would you say?
Anywhere from 0 to 18.
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah. So the backseat of my car had like kids' toys, car seats, a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
I met my husband when I was doing that.
Okay, so were you single during all of this?
I was.
Okay.
I was like the life of a party. I tell people all sorts of stories. Yeah, it was great. It was
not for the faint of heart. So how long were you doing that for? And then kind of tell us your career trajectory since then.
Yeah, so I did that for about 6 years.
Dang, that's
got
a long
married
time.
during that time and definitely burned out.
Yeah, you would have
middle of the night phone calls. It was
Yeah.
hard, especially being newly married. I never know when I would be home. And
Right.
so that was hard. After that, I did get to do what I thought would be my dream job, which is what I got my social work degree for, was private adoptions. So I worked at a law firm for a bit and then matched, I think it was like over 52 families.
Wow.
With their babies. So I helped create those families, which was a beautiful thing. And
was that domestic or international or both, or how'd that work?
Just domestic.
Just domestic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then moved here to Tennessee, and just seeing that need for entire communities to come around the vulnerable kids. I mean, I grew up in the church and I worked, these social work jobs, and I just never saw those two things meshing well together, and the needs are so great. And so when I heard about America's Kids Belong, our parent organization, and seeing that they took a holistic approach, they worked not only just in the churches, but in the community, giving everybody something they could do around the foster care system, because we know not everybody is called to foster or adopt themselves, but there is something we can all do for these kids. And so that holistic approach was so attractive, and it seemed like the only thing I can imagine doing while working with these kids. Like, this is what will work, getting entire communities around these kids.
Yeah. So I actually, when we went to the benefit that y'all had, I found it really interesting. The gentleman who was in charge, who started America's Kids Belong, he was talking about just like almost like kids that get into foster care are more likely to have all these other things that are, affect us even, if you're looking at it from a holistic standpoint, it's just, it's like heartbreaking to think about. That's where my heart is, as we've talked about, just kids that end up aging out of the foster care system. And, they're more likely to what? End up in...
pregnant by 19, incarceration. 60% of all human trafficking victims came out of the foster care system. Homelessness, poverty, all of it. Foster care is the feeder to these.
The feeder to it,
So many people spend so much time on that end of it. Even ministries and companies are getting hit up for $100 here, $100 there. It's almost like a Band-Aid. Like, we need to go upstream and really hit the root of the problem, which is foster care, where these kids are coming from, and they're aging out without a family and ending up on the streets. Yeah.
So tell me how, like, America's Kids Belong, and then you guys, how did that all kind of formulate, and how did it come to be?
Yeah. So America's Kids Belong formed about 4 years ago, and it was based off of 2 proven models. So in Virginia, the Secretary of the Commonwealth there, Secretary of the State, was working for the governor and said, there are all these kids. There are about 1,000 kids that need to be adopted. And you're the governor. They have no parents. You're basically their dad.
Oh
and
my
he
gosh.
said, well, let's do something.
Yeah. Well,
so they ran a political forward-facing campaign just using his platform, really, in social media, and got 1,000 kids adopted in a year.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of kids.
That's a huge deal. So simultaneously, in Colorado, a couple was meeting these kids and decided, we need to give them a face and a voice, and we need to video them. There's a lot of photo listing sites out there and online, but you need to see the kid's personality.
Of course,
you don't just want to read it. So they started filming kids, and they in Colorado brought the number of kids who needed to be adopted from 800 down to 200. Wow. And it's maintained around there. So both great things. But the problem is, in Colorado, they weren't working with the state very well. And so when a state leader came in and said, we don't want to work with churches, they were kind of ousted and couldn't do much more work.
Right.
And in Virginia, they didn't even capitalize on the church communities or tapping into that whatsoever, nor were they doing videos. So America's Kids Belong brings those 2 models together with the leaders of both of those movements, essentially, and then also adds in the business and the creative community. So we're focusing on all 4 sectors.
Okay. And so then you in Tennessee, so there's only really 3 spots, would you say? 3 states technically that I guess are involved, or
we're in about 10 states total, but not the full model.
Got it.
There's 3 states that are running the full model with all 4 spheres active and the government involved.
Okay. And so Tennessee Kids Belong, they're like, hey, you should do this. Or did you volunteer? How did that work?
I heard about the holistic model, and I said, I'm in. Like, I'm doing some speaking, I'm doing some volunteer work, and nothing nothing is catching my eye like this because this seems like this is what's going to do it. This is going to solve this problem in Tennessee. So I said, whatever I could do. And suddenly it was, well, why don't you just run the whole thing?
Yeah. You're like, okay.
And I kept thinking like, I'm just a social worker. I'm just a social worker. And at one point my husband looked at me and said, you've got to stop saying just. Like, you're not just a social worker. Like,
there's like some imposter syndrome in there.
Absolutely.
How did you overcome that besides your husband saying, hey, you need to like check yourself? Who is great, by the way.
He is great. But being married to a leadership coach, you can only receive it so often.
God bless my future husband.
Right. Right.
I'm aware.
So definitely, it's been a learning curve. So it's been a little over 2 years of essentially running a nonprofit
and hiring and getting people on board,
and managing people and fundraising and all of that. I mean, it's taken a lot. And it's skills that are not social worker skills, right? It's business leader, it's entrepreneur, it's people manager.
Yeah. So that's something that's innate in you. It has to be.
Well, I'm trying.
No,
I'm trying
seriously, that is hard. Like I have some friends that are in, nonprofit work or in social work actually, and not that they couldn't be able to do it, but I don't think their brain is wired in that way. So that is a gifting where like you have that and the ability to then lead from that. That's not a normal gifting. So I want to first applaud you on what you guys are doing. Hey friends, this first month of podcasting has been such a blast and a half. Thank you for all your support, for sharing with your friends, and for writing reviews. Here are 2 of my favorite reviews we've gotten thus far. 2 episodes in, and I feel like I've already learned so much. I'm currently at a job I don't love and feel very underpaid in, and listening to Jenna's enthusiasm and expertise has really encouraged me to get my goals, resume, and future together in order to land that dream job. Girl, you are so welcome. And this one from Teehee14, great name by the way. Jenna is so great at helping to unravel the pieces, dive into things, and look at work through the lens of faith in a realistic and practical way. She hits such a good balance between motivational and tactical, which I love. I already love the guests she's bringing on the podcast. Really fascinating topics and conversations. Well, friend, there was more where that came from. If you've been enjoying the Your Career Story podcast, we would so appreciate your reviews. The more reviews we get, apparently the more Apple loves us, which means more chances other people just like you can find career freedom. So head on over to iTunes and give us a review. All right, back to the episode. So what has been the most challenging thing through starting this up? Because, you started from the ground up and kind of what are the results over the past couple of years? Not to put you on the spot with numbers or anything like that.
No, you're fine. It's been absolutely amazing to watch. So we partnered with the state of Tennessee and they said, in a dream world, we want to see a few goals met. We want to see 10% more foster families. Well, the first year we knocked it out of the park. It was 44% more foster families recruited and certified that year. They asked us to help get 100 kids placed in forever homes. Yeah. We got 119 placed in a forever home. So, it was just, it was a lot of work, and there was a lot of that needing to prove ourselves. We were a new nonprofit. We had these tools. We were very humble in wanting to work with anybody who needed, the help and the resources. And then the second year, same thing. It was, they set a goal and we blew it out of the water. It was 27%. And not to say that that's just our work. That's us empowering social workers. That's us empowering churches to recruit families.
You come alongside. What's the common misconception about Tennessee Kids Belong?
That we are an adoption agency. Yeah. That we are a
even though that's your background
agency. And it's like we speak that language. We know all of that, but we're trilingual. We speak business. We speak church. We speak DCS and government.
Right.
And what we do is we get everybody moving in the same direction. Yeah. So. We work off of the Stanford Collective Impact Model, where it takes all of these social sectors to come together to make sustainable change.
Right.
So you could do, we could throw a bunch of events and pull on some emotional heartstrings and get some people to sign up right away. But are we really creating systemic change? Right. And are we really building a support system for those families? Otherwise, they're just going to burn out. Yeah. And then we'd burn out. It'd be a one-time event that got a few people,
Right.
So we're in it for the long haul. We're in it to do it well. And not just a flash in the pan. Quick cultural moment.
Yes. So talk to us a little bit. I know the videos are the most forward-facing thing that you guys do. Tell us a little bit about those video shoot days and just kind of some of the impact you feel like that has specifically made.
Yeah,
we'll put in the show notes kind of where to find those videos and where you can share them as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So the I Belong Project in Tennessee, there are about 350 kids who Their parental rights have been terminated and there is no permanent plan for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in need of an adoptive family.
Mm-hmm.
So we go out and we hold these video shoot days.
Mm-hmm.
And we make it a real experience for the kids. So they're used to getting photographed and they know they're looking for a family. And we hold that intention, right?
Yeah.
You know, they know why they're there. We know why they're there. It's a hard day. So
I was going to say, that's going to be a hard day.
We make it as memorable and exciting and fun as we could possibly.
Sure.
So we get businesses to donate food and lunch, and the looks on their faces, like they're not, this is not McDonald's fast food. Like they're getting a hot meal. The social workers are coming and sitting down and getting a hot meal, and we're talking to them and thanking them for all they do. You know, totally a thankless job, countless hours. I mean, they're on the front lines.
Yeah, and they're up in the middle of the night. The whole thing. Yeah.
So getting to thank them and create this space for them that feels good. The kids play, they get a headshot done, they get to pick it out and print it and decorate a frame. So we get companies, small groups, you know, churches to donate frames and the meal, and it becomes just this great setting where people are just mingling and it's fun. Then they get to go do the B-roll, like the action fun shots. So they get paired with somebody and they're playing basketball, they're karaokeing, they're, you know, doing whatever makes them just come alive.
They're so good. They're just show the personality of the kid, and some of the questions that you ask, I mean, it breaks my heart, but it just gives me hope too at the same time, just like the resilience of these kids.
Yeah. And you see them get to be a kid, you know, it's not just a photo listing of, you know, little Johnny needs a home. No, you're watching little Johnny laugh and play foosball, and you see what makes him come alive, and you see his personality and his quirks. And the last part of the day is then the interviews. So I sit and, you know, ask them about their hopes and their dreams and what they want to be when they grow up. And I mean, these kids are amazing. They have profound answers, and some of them, you know, we just did a shoot a couple weeks ago, and a 17-year-old girl, I mean, is just desperate for a family, you know? And when they talk about what's your perfect day, I ask them, you know, describe your perfect day. If you could do anything you wanted, you know, and you and I are like, we'd go get a massage, we'd go whatever, we'd go to the beach, and you're just, you know, and they describe the most mundane things. You know, they say, I want a mom and a dad to wake me up and say, what do you want for breakfast? And I'd come downstairs and my mom would be cooking, you know, eggs and bacon, and my dad would be sipping coffee, reading a newspaper. And like, but they have this like such a desire for the most basic thing. And then they say, and go to school. And then I'd come home and they'd ask me how my day was and then tuck me in, you know, and I have 2 kids at home, and I'm like, wow, I left the house today. You know, what do you want to eat? Mama's got to go to work. What do you want? That's not healthy. What do you want?
Yeah. Well, I even think about me with my parents. I think a lot of, you know, getting involved has made me think of that, of just like how grateful I am to my parents, and thinking about those things that annoyed the crap out of me when I was a teenager. You know, Mom, stop telling me what to wear, you know, but at the same time, I never was exposed to that. That wasn't a thing for all kids. That sounds so silly. I think I cognitively knew that, but until you get exposed to it, you're not really fully understanding that.
Yeah. We have our volunteers come and say, you know, they leave and they're really emotional, and we try and debrief them and walk them through it. And one of them told us, you know, that her kid was sick the next day, and she's like, I stayed home and I tucked him in and I'm checking on him and I'm bringing him this. And she's like, immediately I thought of, what do these kids who live in a group home do? Like, there's nobody checking in on them and keeping them warm and bringing them soup and, you know, first day of school. And so those people are very aware. And once you've met one of these kids at a shoot, it becomes a face and becomes a real child, not just a statistic, you know, not another number. Teens who need a home. It's they become real. And so that's our hope for these videos as well, is that people will watch them. And even if they're not going to adopt that specific child, it's going to change the face of foster care a little bit and maybe open their eyes to, you know, teenagers. These kids don't come in because of something they did. You know, they were the victims. They were the ones moved, and they get such a bad rap. So
they do. What would you say is some of the most common misconceptions about like foster care, the foster care system?
That you have to be married. I'm glad you now know that.
Now I know. I remember telling my mom I was going to bed. She goes, "Are you going to foster?" I said, "Someday." I'm not traveling like a crazy person.
You have to own a home. You can't travel. You have to.
So these are all myths.
Stay-at-home mom. You have all myths, that you have to be a stay-at-home mom, that you can't work. I'm too old to foster. You know what? Some of the empty nesters make some of the best foster parents to teenagers. They've been there. They've done that. They know what teens do, and they've got an empty home that can take in some of these teens. People are really afraid that teenagers are, you know, scary and bad, and they've done something bad. And you know what? They've been through a lot, and trauma is very real. And so if you equip a family with the right tools, you know, not
and support system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some of the things, like if somebody wants to get involved with foster care, what are some of the things that they can do to get involved?
Yeah. So if you're actually looking to become a foster parent, you can go to your state's website, your Department of Children's Services website. But there are so many other ways. So we talk to business leaders and say, hey, you've got employees who are up in the middle of the night because a kid just got placed in their home, at 3 a.m.
From
a police raid.
Right.
And they're going to show up at 8 a.m. pretty tired, pretty aware that there's some significant stuff going on at their house. So how can you as an employer help support your employees through your FMLA benefits?
What are some ways you've seen companies? So anyone who's listening, maybe you're part of an organization, maybe you can see like, hey, does my organization have these types of benefits? If not, is there something that I can do to enact some sort of change? What are some things that you've seen some companies do? Or if you're an HR person too as well.
So going to your HR person first, a lot of companies have adoption benefits. And so adding into that language, foster care.
Yeah.
So foster care benefits that would be in the same lines with the FMLA leave time and flexibility that can help with court dates and your child getting placed in your home immediately and needing to take a little bit of time. Some companies give adoption tax credit. And so working that in towards foster care as well. So going to your HR company first and asking about adoption benefits and foster care benefits is a great first step.
Yeah. So other ways that they can maybe wrap around people that are, maybe they're not called to, get involved in foster care personally, foster, but how do you get involved even if that's not the case?
As a business leader?
Well, or just as a person.
Anybody.
Yeah, just anybody.
Yeah. So there are a lot of mentoring programs. There's a lot of statistics that show that every kid is like one caring adult away from success. And so if you become a mentor and you are that voice, you are that trusted source, you are the person that kid comes to, you might not ever foster or adopt them, but you are a significant part of that kid's life.
Yeah.
The CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate.
Okay.
So that's somebody who feels like, man, I've got this fighter voice and I'm going to go meet with this kid monthly and be their voice in court and make best recommendations for them, unbiased, to the social worker, to the foster family, to the bio family. That's another great way. That's a volunteer organization. Looking around and saying, what resources do I have? How can I utilize, what I already do, what my vocation already is? Do I own a haircut store? And you know what? Foster families, they get a small stipend each month, but suddenly...
That's also probably another myth about the foster care system.
That they, they get paid a ton, they do this for money. Absolutely not. They get paid at bare minimum, and there's a lot of things that
they end up paying for
themselves. That they end up paying for, and that it could be helpful, like a gym membership, for example. I mean, if your family goes from 3 kids at breakfast to 6 kids at dinner,
which is a real reality,
absolutely real, and it may change in 2 weeks. It may change the next day, and so how can a gym say, you know what, we're just going to do a flat rate for all foster families, no matter how many kids are in there, or 50% off.
Right.
So looking at where are you at, what can you do? We always say that there's nobody I can't figure out something for you to do. My kid's Girl Scout troop leader was like, well, we always send cookies to the troops. What can we do to help you? And I said, send them to social workers.
Yeah.
Send them to the DCS office where these workers are working really hard, long hours, and say, we see you. Thank you for caring for these kids.
Yeah.
So there is something everybody can do.
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot you do in your job, right? It's a lot of work. There's probably some stress involved. What keeps you going? Keeps you motivated and excited about this initiative and just kind of your work in general?
I'll tell you right before I saw you today, I was watching a kid's video and I'm doing the editing notes and I'm reminding myself that I'm behind on, a spreadsheet and a budget and all the nitty gritties, the yucky, not fun stuff. But I'm watching this video of this brother and sister and I'm looking at them laughing at each other. And I knew that they aren't placed together right now. And our goal and what we're hoping to do is find a home that can take them both in together. Yeah. And so the sooner I get their video out into the world, who can I contact? And I start to get really creative. She really liked horseback riding. Can I call a barn and stable and get them some free horseback riding lessons? And, those small things that when I'm watching the kids' videos, when I'm meeting these kids, it's just such a reminder, you are why I do this. Yeah. And I always keep up on my board the number right now. It's 7,733 kids in the foster care system in Tennessee. Yeah. So those 7,000 all need something different. Some need a temporary safe place, some need a forever home, but those 7,000 are who we're doing this for. Yeah. And
do you know how many kids need forever homes right now? I'm totally putting you on the spot with numbers.
It's about 350. It's always around there.
Okay. I gotcha. Well, what would you say if there was somebody who is looking to get into nonprofit work or social work? What would be the best?
Good luck.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the best career advice you could give them? Good luck. But really, what is the best career advice besides good luck that you could give somebody that's looking to get into this line of work? Or like what misconceptions do you want to debunk as well? Because I think a lot of us go into our careers thinking, as you had mentioned, it's going to go one way, and then it looks totally different. I was just telling your husband this morning, I was like talking about my investment banking days. I was like, it was not what I really thought it was going to look like.
Flexibility is key. I mean, when you're a social worker, that's second nature. You have to just learn to be flexible because you're working with a broken society, and things are going to go wonky. You're going to get a gun pulled on you. You're going to I saw all sorts of crazy things as a social worker, but learning to be flexible and leaning in and always growing. I mean, especially now in this role, going from social worker to running a nonprofit world is so complex and different from business world. So I've got a lot of voices in my life telling me what to do from a business standpoint. And I'm like, hey, that's illegal in nonprofit world. You know, like
can you give me an example of something like that? You can think of.
Like the way we fundraise and paying people to fundraise for us. And it's been like, oh, we can't actually even do that.
Yeah, you can't even do that.
So, you know, I'm getting a lot of advice, and I'm learning that I just need to lean in and grow in this, and that my skill set is developing. And there's been a big learning curve and some growing pains going from social worker to executive director. But you're doing it so well. It's so exciting. And the vision casting is so fun. I mean, I love it because I see such big things and big potential, and I'm so excited and getting to share that and finding people who are able to execute some of my dreams. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm the same. I'm like, I love the vision. Now who's going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like getting the right team around you that can execute this, and not being afraid to ask for that help and that wisdom, surrounding yourself with other leaders who are a few steps ahead of you.
Yeah. So what's your kind of last final question, but what is your dream for Tennessee Kids Belong as we're talking about vision?
I would love for random, let's call her Sally Doe.
Okay.
I would love for random Sally Doe to walk down the street and see a bunch of companies have signs that say we support foster families, and her to look at Johnny Doe, her husband, and say, you know, we've been thinking about that quite a bit. You know, gosh, foster care seems to be everywhere. Sally and Johnny would then go to their church, and their pastor would be talking about the needs and saying, you know what, if you guys do this, we're going to wrap around you. And we've got a whole team at our church that knows how to support these families. Sally Doe signs onto her computer and is looking at her social media, and suddenly there's videos of kids being shared by her favorite celebrities, artists. Everywhere she goes, she's seeing it because it's become part of the culture. It's become the norm in Tennessee. It's not stigmatized. It's not, those myths have been busted. And Sally can say, you know what, I'm getting into this because I have a heart for these kids, and my entire community is going to come around me.
Yeah.
I will not be alone in this. Our family will be supported. It is recognized. And if that's the case, if there's enough families that step up to become foster families, these kids will not be separated because there aren't enough homes. Yeah. They will be placed 2 hours away from their home because there isn't anybody that can take a kid their age. Yeah. These kids will stay where they need to stay, stay in their schools, stay close to their bio family for visits.
And systemically, that may reduce also all of the other things that you had mentioned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. These kids belong in families. And if we can do that and we can get enough families, we're going to be in such a different place. And I think we're at this time where we're in a cultural moment right now where you're seeing foster care talked about, which has never been the case. I mean, it's always been a negative thing, right?
Oh,
You've
totally,
got This Is Us with the foster care plot line. You had the movie Instant Family that came out.
I love that movie.
It was fantastic.
It was such a great movie.
It was real and authentic, which I loved.
Yeah, and it was funny.
Hilarious.
And hello, Mark Wahlberg.
Right? So you've got it right now in society, and we're on the verge, and I just feel like, gosh, these families are about to be so supported, and these kids are about to be in stable, safe places because of it.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Kristin. I've loved learning, and I'm sure all the listeners have loved learning a little bit more about just your career trajectory and everywhere in between that you've done, and just kind of what the things you guys are working on here at Tennessee Kids and America Kids Belong. So where is somewhere that somebody can kind of either connect with you or connect with the organization?
Absolutely. So if you're in Tennessee, you can go to tnkidsbelong.org and you can go to americaskidsbelong.org if you're in another state.
Yeah. And we'll be sharing some videos on my social media platforms with the release of this podcast. So please be on the lookout and we'll put some more of this information in the show notes. Thank you, Kristin, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to Your Career Story podcast. I would love to get to meet you. And there are a couple of ways that we can connect in between episodes. First and foremost, I love my LinkedIn. Second is via Instagram. And third is over on my website. I actually have a special spot just for you full of fun, free resources. So all you have to do is go to www.jennaviviano.com/resources. Super simple, for a bunch of freebies that will help you boost your career. Hope to see you next week.